Medicine is one of the most difficult, fast-paced, yet rewarding paths you can take. You can set out on your own and navigate the student loans, the bureaucracies, and systems that define a typical medical career. Or you can apply for the U.S. Army's Health Professions Scholarship Program and launch yourself into a medical career like no other. Your tuition will be completely covered, and when you graduate med school, you'll learn from and work with some of the most elite minds in medicine. That's the Army difference. Learn more and apply today at goarmy.com/HPSP.
That every nation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream.
War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our war. And this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio! The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And I'm your host, Janet Kira Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin. And today, our guest is John Titor II, and our producer is Thomas Becker, also known as a Mad Painter. Let me tell you a little bit about our guest before I bring him on. His newest book is called Chronicles, Continued Chronicles of John Titor II, and it was released in September of this year. And a couple questions. Mankind's destiny, a closely guarded secret. Will mankind continue to survive? Everyone deserves to know the answer. Is the future reserved for a select group of people? Will the government finally disclose the secret space program? Will off-world colonies for the select few continue to be kept secret? Are the off-world colonies the destination for a few as the environment collapses? Will global warming wreak havoc on the Earth and end civilization on the planet? So John Titor II entered duty with the Air Force as an airman in the U.S. Air Force at Dulce, New Mexico. Specifically trained because of his abilities to become an officer and a pilot, he received intensive training on the latest airframes and power plants available. This included the TR-3B spacecraft, and John Titor commanded the 177th Time Travel Division. Later, he was given command of a combat group in eliminating a threat to the planet by extraterrestrials. So I have a full bio for John on the website, aquarianradio.com. And Sasha, Dr. Lessin, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
We
That's
can
wonderful.
hear you,
Yeah,
yes.
I'm really excited to have John back here. As you probably know, I'm a student of the Anunnaki, and everything John has told us is totally consistent with the kind of reports that I've been getting from my Anunnaki informants, namely that of the Nibiruns, Enki it has been in charge of the quantum computer. Basically, it means he is the age of Aquarius means that we're going to be entering into a place where there's manifestation from the mind's true revelations, so to speak, and that's very exciting. And Lil, who, as Yahweh had did so many very brutal things, it would seem, from our population's perspective, was made in charge by Anu of the treasury, as unlimited treasury. Now, it all comes down to, Enlil has reached enlightenment and has his own planet, which is a level 5 civilization. And because he's at such a level now of manifestation, he isn't petty at all now. He wants to help us. And John Titor, our time traveler, has directly had contact with Yahweh, who explains how this level 5 civilization can be and why there's still hope if we just listen to the message. And I want to just tell you some of the message that John's latest book says. I'm quoting him. The Anunnaki have provided technology to the United States of America. Cloning technology that created you, John, this is what Yahweh said, came from us. With the help of Rock, that's John's Zeta friend, both you and Marcia, that's John's wife, were created from Lilith and myself, directly from Lilith and Yahweh. We were trying to create humans that would be akin to us, that would help us carry the message of friendship to all Earth. Yahweh said, take our message of friendship to the United Nations and speak to them of forming an alliance or federation with other species from nearby worlds. It is time to bring Earth into a community of different species to provide security and stable for all. Abandon nuclear weapons immediately. John, tell us what these levels of civilization are and what's in store from us in your meeting with Yahweh, please.
Well, I met with Yahweh in person some time ago now. It's been almost a year since I've gone to the planet that basically the Anunnaki retreated to after what was a war on Earth and Mars, and I am now told Venus also. And that at one time there was an extremely high-level civilization on Earth and Mars and Venus, and these planets communicated. But it was an Anunnaki civilization, and there was a war. And this explains a lot of what we call Neolithic sites all over our planet. If you look at Pumapunku, that is a site where no one can explain who built it, but from all the information I've been given, the Anunnaki built it, and it was destroyed by them because there was what amounted to a civil war among the Anunnaki. And it was horrific. But what it did, it took mankind practically back to the Stone Age. And all this can be easily verified. When you look at Neolithic sites all over the world and you see massive stones that we still cannot lift today, that were being lifted then, and that were cut precisely, this is the signature of the Anunnaki. And at some places in Peru, you will see these Neolithic sites where we have very precisely cut stones, and then the Aztecs came along, or the Incas, excuse me. The Incas came along and built on top of it. And there are many sites like this where the Anunnaki were gone, but the Inca built on top of these stones that were precisely cut. And one of the people that points this out in his books is Brian Forster. and he does it on some YouTube clips also. But when you see it, it's just startling. You see what was built tens of thousands of years ago, and then the more recent building by the local tribes right on top of it. In Pumapunku, one of my favorite sites, the Indians say, "We didn't build it." That's what they say. They're just site after site all over the world like that. And I've come to realize, and I think a lot of other people too, is that the Egyptians did not build the pyramids or the Sphinx, any of it. It was built by the Anunnaki, and it was part of a power grid. It's just incredible. But we're facing so many other challenges right now. Mankind has done so much to poison the planet. We have a tremendous amount of refuse in the Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico, in the Atlantic, in the Pacific. The oceans are being poisoned at horrific rates, and the fisheries are dying off. And at the same time, we are seeing the air quality go down, the water quality go down. All the fracking that has gone on here in the United States has ruined lots of groundwater everywhere. And I have communicated my concerns about this to Ban Ki-moon. I've communicated to Obama when he was president. I've attempted to speak to the United Nations, and I put those letters that I wrote in my last book, continued, Chronicles of John Titor II. And it's just astounding to me that I'm meeting the same resistance in attempting to talk to the United Nations that Gordon Cooper did. He also attempted to talk to the United Nations on this subject of extraterrestrials, and he's not met with any success during his lifetime. And I continue to lobby for the environment and talk to people about extraterrestrials. And I recently reached what I thought was a landmark in my life. Marcia rushed to me the other day with the people that do our fulfillment on the books, authorized Chronicles of John Titor II and continued Chronicles of John Titor II. And we have sold worldwide 75,000 books.
Wow. Congratulations.
And I never expected that we would sell that many books. And I'm always asked, to write in the front cover of the book, my autograph, and then something to a special person that the book has been bought for. And we accomplished this. They basically bring me the books and say, here's what goes in this one, and here's what goes in that one. And I sign them, and they get them mailed off. And literally all over the world I'm being read. But I'm still not getting to the people I wanted to in Washington, D.C., much to my frustration. And on the other hand, I've been told that there is an elite group in Washington, D.C., and their plan is that they will just, when the environment no longer supports mankind on this planet because of the environment, the plan is to move to colonies on exoplanets that are nearby. And there are at least 10 planets.
Yeah. Well, John, I don't think that's acceptable. That would mean billions of people would die. And I don't think that's acceptable for any culture to leave that type of legacy throughout the universe, throughout the galaxy. We are in a universal culture. Whether some people acknowledge it or not, it's happening. There's too many whistleblowers and contactees, experiencers. There are millions of people that have had contact with extraterrestrials. There are, I don't know how many whistleblowers now. There, a few years ago, there were 200 or 300 that had come forth that had been into these projects. You're a whistleblower. So I don't think that's going to be accepted. We're not going to go down without, I don't want to say fighting it like the term, but without waking up the world. We're going to reach critical mass, and because you sold that many books, I think that's an implication. We've just begun, and we're going to continue here on Revolution Radio and Aquarian Radio Network and keep doing shows with you. So I know you've been talking to Yahweh, who's Enlil, and lately we've had a lot of people come forth to identify as Anunnaki incarnations or fractals or threads or whatever you want to call it. And so we're relaunching with the Anunnaki series, and we're going to start waking up this planet. So let's go. I know it seems very dire, but I know there's solutions. When you had a conversation with Yahweh about this problem, and he gave you the dictate to take the message to, the United Nations, like they're really going to listen. They don't listen to anything. But I think we take it to the people, and we can vote with our wallets and those type of things. What was his message to you? What did he tell you? I mean, he certainly has ideas on how we can reverse everything. I know that the Anunnaki's culture, how far in advance of our culture is the Anunnaki society? You said it's a level 6 or something? Can you explain the levels
Level 5
to us and what that means? Level 5, yeah. What? So
there was a Russian scientist that came up with the Kardashev scale, and it is the best way to judge the level of a civilization. And I studied the Kardashev scale, and then I was told that when I met Yahweh on his homeworld, I was meeting someone that basically had created a level 5 society. The advancement of this civilization technologically is hard to describe, but I would say that whatever they want to create, they create it. And they don't really have roads as we know it. Everybody has some kind of vehicle that will fly them to a destination, and basically they punch in a destination and it flies them there without crashing. and they have cars to fly. Yes. They don't really have anything like we do with airplanes and exhaust from engines and things like that. Everything is based on a technology that is levitation. And that's what they use to transport everything.
John, it's hard for me to go on when I'm still keep thinking about if he is our friend, he now wants to friend us, and he's level 5. And at level 5, as I understand it, he's the master of energy, and he can manifest what he thinks. Hey man, and he wants to help us. What does he say to do? How can you and I and Janet do something? Is it? And I think it really comes down to how can we get the power elite to have compassion for the planet?
And I've been grappling this situation with the president, Donald Trump, and he is all about commerce and profits for business and creating jobs. But when it comes to the environment, everything I have tried to say falls on deaf ears or doesn't make its way to the Oval Office. I recently complained about bringing trophies back from Africa in the form of animals like lions and elephants killed for sport. I'm very much against it. And he held off allowing it to happen, but he just doesn't understand the environment or environmentalists. We just have to corner him and tell him. And I've told him that if he doesn't become an environmentalist, his chances in 2020 are going to be nil. And
well, it doesn't seem he really cares. I mean, I don't know how you communicate with him. Are you a friend of his, or do you have access to him to have a dialogue?
We trade emails. I traded emails with Obama, and Obama listened better than Donald does so far, although I really complained about trophies from Africa and things like that. But I've literally told him, if he wants another term, he's going to have to become an environmentalist. What Yahweh told me was that we have to, as in a species, look at the planet and say, we have to clean up the oceans. Now, you can't dump anything in the oceans. Everything comes from the oceans. They need to be cleaned up. And that is one part of it. The other part is the internal combustion engine needs to be outlawed. You just have a date.
Yeah.
And you say, we're all going to electric vehicles. Yes, that will help. But everything now, I mean, we have to do these things not in 10 years, now.
Right.
It's dire because in my conversations with Stephen Hawking, we talked about mankind as a species and how much time we had left on this planet. And he said maybe 100 years. But I don't think that he was taking into account Fukushima and then some of the other things that are still going on. And Fukushima destroyed fisheries all across the Pacific, all the way to Alaska. And we've not felt the full weight of that yet.
Well, that was,
John, was that
there were so many people.
Yes,
yeah,
go
that's
ahead.
intentional, because there are so many people that I know personally that had cures for Fukushima, and whenever they would try to, bring it out or implement it, they were met with huge resistance. It seems to me that, this planet's been taken over by hostile entities, like there's a theory out there that the Reptilians have got control of the planet, and these are species that are terraforming the planet. So the environment that results from all this pollution is they're more acclimated to survive and thrive in that type of environment. That's why they want to terraform it. What do you think of that theory? Because it doesn't make sense on a human level. Trump, maybe he's been taken over or cloned, or the black goo got him or something, but he doesn't act normally like a normal human being. Like, yes, let's care about the environment. Let's clean it up. He's got children and grandchildren. What's going on with this man that he just doesn't care that his children
falls to
be able to grow up on Earth?
This falls to what I learned from Bigelow Aerospace in Nevada. And they make pods that you basically inflate in space that become living space for our species and cargo for our species. And you can basically take very large freighters of these pods to other colonies. And I know that 2 colonies are now self-sufficient and can take on more people. And I've been invited to live at one as an administrator. I turned that down. I also turned down an offer to live back on the planet that Yahweh controls. And Marcia and I talked it over, and we will not go. Eventually, if I'm still alive at the very end, then Marcia and I will probably migrate with close people to us. We'll take a a certain amount of people with us, and we will go to one of the colonies that are self-sufficient.
How many people can you take with you?
I am limited.
Everybody's going to get buddy with you.
I am very limited. I could probably take around 50 souls.
Oh, that's a lot.
That is a lot.
John, one of the things that some of my informants have said is that the Zeta Greys had decided to help us, and they have actually made a deal with the U.S. to create the hybrids who would be adapted to the realization that we are in extraterrestrial contact, and there is hope, and we can use the technologies, and that our hope is in these younger people that have the larger. They're the ones that buy your book, that understand what you're saying, that realize that you're offering hope directly from Yahweh, and it's like, wow. We know from Sitchin's writings that Enki and Prince Marduk had the means of clearing up the radiation when the nuclear cloud from Sodom and Gomorrah and Sinai blew over Sumer, over Iraq. They already have those means, and Mr. Kishi has shown that you can easily clean up Fukushima. There are interests that are Janet's identifying as reptilian, but whoever they are, we can. There's still a hope that I have is that we can use empathy, that we can use our great capacity to feel their hearts and make some kind of compromise, so that we don't have to have a bloody war to overthrow this elite, or just die because we don't fight. There's got to be a middle way, I think.
Well, the complication to the environment is the chaos theory, is that when people go hungry in third world countries because the fisheries are gone, then you have a level of domestic violence and local laws overthrown, and then law at a higher level is overthrown. And then you have whole countries that are run by warlords, and you have a lot of warring countries fighting each other, and chaos will just spread. If you look at the level of crime that is ever increasing, just here in the United States, you may not see it from your point of view where you are in the islands, but here in the United States, the cycle of violence is escalating, and that's because we have a civilization here in the United States where we don't try to groom young people to enter the workforce. The amount of gangs and gang activity all over the United States is increasing all the time. And some of it falls to illegal aliens that are an issue. And then we also have another problem with immigration in the United States. But the entire world is having an immigration problem now, with people living in the West that have come from the Middle East, and they're not integrating. They're trying to bring what they had back home in the Middle East to Western civilization, and it's not working. And so we're getting acts of terrorism, and we're seeing a country like Norway, and they've taken in immigrants there, and now their entire country is in physical crisis because they can't afford to do it anymore, and they are encountering a level of chaos from these immigrants. It's incredible.
Well, it comes down to what do you do about people whose ideology is that they have to either kill you if you don't convert, and if you convert and it isn't genuine, they'll kill you anyhow. It's like the Inquisition, things that Western Christians gave up a long time ago. but there's still this medieval kill everybody else trip. And is there any way we can reach these people? One of the things I can think of is stop using their damn oil.
Well,
Yeah.
Oil is not a solution, but it's part of the problem. I will give you that. What I thought for a while was that if extraterrestrials would come out into the open and say, we're here and we don't use oil, we use electricity, that would have helped. But the problem that I get pushback from the Greys and from the Tall Whites and the Anunnaki. They say, you don't have a great record of working with other species. You have a lot of racism going on within your own species, and we're not ready to try that.
We need to go outside of our box here. The reason we don't have a good record is because we don't have all the information. To be fair, that humanity's been manipulated and controlled and fed propaganda and an ulterior motive and agenda since we were created. And so that has to come out. The truth will set us all free. And there needs to be basic truths that apply across the board, like thou shalt not kill. And that's an absolute crime and sin. And so war should be illegal. And any other killing on that basis is illegal. And people who do not want to abide by it, we once had Botany Bay colonies. Send them somewhere else and isolate them. You have to protect the good, innocent people from those who would just come in and that's what happens in the secret space program. My friend is in the military there, and there are people that just come in, beings that come in and just kill and pillage and plunder and rape and all that stuff. So you absolutely have to protect your citizenry against those types of ideology. And if we become truly telepathic, we're going to know, and I know we have that ability, it's been turned off, turn back on our telepathy. Then you'll know the motivations of people around you, and those people can absolutely be quarantined and sent somewhere else. We have space travel. That's my thoughts. Just isolate the people with these violent thoughts and ideologies.
Well,
at least begin with that.
One of the things, when I visited the Anunnaki, I was struck with the fact that they didn't have crime. They prayed to a god. All the Anunnaki believe in a god. And that struck me as being very interesting. But they also said at the same time that we are very quick to put down fakiers or people that say they are communicating directly with God. They have to prove it, or that they're a criminal. It's that simple.
So what is God to them? What do you mean they pray to God? Are they praying to a humanoid, or are they praying to a non-physical entity?
And they all are given a path to worship in their own way. It's very interesting. But I was told that they don't allow for, like I said, that we have televangelists. And they said, yeah, we know. And I said, and they get rich. And they said, we wouldn't allow that here. It's so much more cut and dry that. Someone says that they're communicating with God, they're probably going to end up being interviewed, and then they'll decide what to do with them. But is there a supreme being? And they tell me absolutely yes. And when I said, well, I'm familiar with the Kardashev scale, and it goes up to 5. And they say that there are supreme beings in the universe. And what they're capable of is nothing less than miraculous. But they're not omnipresent. They are not. And we were taught that in the Bible, that God was omnipresent. No. And I think that's realistic. I think that's what it is.
Explain what you mean by omnipresent.
God is omnipresent
everywhere.
means he is everywhere at the same time and listening.
Right.
And they say he's not.
He's not. Okay, so then when they're praying, are they just telepathically communicating, like sending out a signal?
They're
What does
trying
that mean,
to
praying?
convey a message. Okay? They're
Right.
either they're praying thankfully, or they're praying for a loved one or something like that.
So how do they pray?
Sing
Do they?
prayer? Do it in groups in a certain place? Do they sing? Do they have pretty things? What's the praying like?
I wasn't privy to watching them during a religious ceremony, but I was told that they do it in groups and they have places, locations set aside for it. Yes, but they were quick to tell me, like nothing pagan.
Pagan.
I said, well, mankind used to sacrifice, like sheep or goats or firstborn or whatever, and they said that's barbaric, isn't it? I said yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so then we even talked about Jerusalem and the first temple, and they said they observed the first temple and they were upset with money changers in the temple and things that went on in the temple, and they said it became a for-profit institution, and that's what Jesus encountered when he went to.
Who set up these temples? I mean, these were ignorant people. They had to learn about temples, about God, about religion from the Anunnaki because they were completely, out in the wild and ignorant. So who taught them wrong in the first place?
The Anunnaki are quick to say that they were mistaken as gods, but they felt, on the one hand, if they didn't say anything, that they received the cooperation of the people, the native peoples. And so they didn't present it that way, but the people interpreted it that way. And you have to understand, when you see the Anunnaki flying overhead, okay, in a vehicle that uses levitation, you think, well, they're going with the gods. And that's what was witnessed in Mesopotamia, and they saw it and they said they're gods. And what they were
right.
beings that had superior knowledge and technology. That's it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's
what I get from two really dramatic things. One is my great ancestor, Jacob, actually fought one of them and won, and he was given a blessing for that. That was one instance. The other instance, in the Battle of Troy, Diomedes actually cut Inanna's arm, and she bled before the other Anunnaki got her out of there. So that we realized, and the Anunnaki realized too, that they're not invincible, and that we could be dangerous too.
Absolutely, mankind is very dangerous, and we were, I think, here in the United States, after the detonation in New Mexico, when they detonated the first atomic bomb at White Sands, New Mexico, that's when extraterrestrial species started paying attention to this planet. Okay? Mm. And after that, we started having sightings, and there were some crashes, things like this. Mm-hmm. But they took notice of the third planet from the sun after that.
So if the atomic explosions affect them, why didn't they just come in and shut it off, shut it down, don't permit it?
I would say that extraterrestrial species do live on this planet. The Anunnaki live here. They have a spaceport in two different areas of the planet. One here on the west coast and one on the east coast. The tall whites are at Creech Air Force Base. The grays are at Dulce Base in New Mexico. These species have, and along with the reptilians at Dulce Base also, because both species, grays and reptilians are there, have an investment into mankind and Earth, and they would prefer not to see a nuclear war on Earth. And I believe they would intercede on mankind's behalf. Yes, there are agreements, written agreements to that effect. I think that North Korea, while it poses a tremendous threat to the world, that it could be eliminated very quickly. And the United States has been given the technology to do it. And I think that Donald Trump is chomping at the bit to do it. And it may just happen here in the next 12 months.
Why is it always something that's going to be so... Yeah, go ahead.
Kim Jong-un, several governments have vowed to eliminate him, assassinate him. And I believe that that may happen. It's all...
the danger is the longer it takes, the worse the retaliation and the more of our troops in South Korea and stuff that we're going to be jeopardized, as well as Japan. And so it's a very, very scary situation.
Well, it's scary for the Chinese. The People's Republic of China don't want a nuclear war, and neither do the Russians. And they basically cut North Korea off economically. But right now, North Korea is building a nuclear-powered submarine that can launch missiles. And every one of those missiles is going to be targeted to the United States. I guarantee you. And so while that submarine is being built right now, it needs to be blown out of the water. And we know it's being built.
Yeah.
So we have, mankind is imperiled. If we have a hydrogen bomb go off in the atmosphere, it will kill millions of people on this planet. There will be a few survivors, but they will ultimately die also. The extraterrestrial species, the Anunnaki, have told me that is the one thing they fear that may happen to us.
Okay, so John, let's look at that, what you just said. We know that whoever they are, we know that they can take out Kim Jong-un without causing all this hassle for the rest of the planet and killing off millions and billions of people. So who is letting it happen and why? Because it could be done. It could be eliminated. It's not that hard, you know? So somebody is letting this happen for their motives.
I think that the only one that's standing within the government against it is Donald Trump. He's already said that if they go to a launch against us, he will take care of it. But the problem is submarines. And Kim Jong-un would use a submarine missile system against us. And if they're, within 100 miles of the West Coast or 100 miles of the Hawaiian Islands or Guam or whatever it is, or the East Coast even, those missiles are very hard to stop. It's nothing that the Patriot anti-missile system would be really equipped to do. So we would take hits.
So they've got to hit them. They've got to hit them before the submarine is ready to launch. Even before that, before the submarine is a viable submarine.
What they have to do is track all of the North Korean submarines and attack as much as they can simultaneously, and then within the next breath, they level what is Panmunjom, North Korea capital, and then proceed to eliminate the ground forces and air force that North Korea has. Literally.
Well, John, you were telling us how your facility was attacked or something, and it's in your book or something, and then the Anunnaki just basically, just like in Star Trek, beamed them out. Couldn't they very easily just beam out the subs and any other the nukes and anything else? And Kim, I mean, they can detect anybody or anything from the air. The Star Trek technology of being able to identify different species, different individuals.
I believe that they can.
Around the planet. Yeah.
I believe that they can. And they could be prompted to do it. If
talk to your friends. Let me talk to them. Tell them Janet wants to talk to them.
They have to, it would be an attack, a simultaneous attack. And you could do it very easily. An Anunnaki spacecraft near the Korean Peninsula could take care of quite a bit of it. The Anunnaki have spacecraft, and they also have submersible vessels that are in our oceans, and they could easily take out North Korean submarines. But
right.
That plan has to be put together with Washington. And Washington has
I don't think they need Washington's mission to save the Earth. I mean, I don't think they have to answer to anybody in Washington because they're so far, it's kind of like having an answer to an ant when you're a level 5 technology and you have humans that aren't even a level 1 yet. I don't think they really need permission from anybody. Who in Washington would be their equal? Nobody.
Legally, we would have to have Donald Trump given some information, but could extraterrestrials do it? I believe they can. And I believe that besides the Anunnaki, the tall whites can do it quite easily. I think that there is a line in the sand that extraterrestrials that have colonies on this planet are watching to see if the North Koreans cross it, and then we may see some of that. I really do believe.
Yeah, I think they're invested in living here. They have their own facilities and they have their own people. I don't think they're going to let the whole planet get nuked. And how they talk to Trump? Has he been visited? Do you have any
I will tell you that
that
Trump has been read in on extraterrestrials. Absolutely.
And what does that mean?
Knows.
When he read in? He knows.
I think that he's been contacted. I think that he has had conversations. I think he's fully aware of what goes on at extraterrestrial spaceports on the planet. He's been read in. He's when I saw who he has appointed as the national head of security and for Department of Defense, I know he's read in because those guys know. He's got the full story now, and the Russians do too, and so do the Chinese. And the Chinese, if you know, the Chinese, all they're trying to do is improve their economy through all this. They're not interested. Right. Have you heard a threat from the People's Republic of China over territory in the last 20 years? No way. They're not interested in that. They're interested in commerce, in doing business with other countries, in spreading out their economy, and the Russians too.
So why would they want to kill us off because we're their clients? It's illogical when you come, like if you're Ferengi, you come on the basis, you think, look at the society on the basis like, no, you don't want to interfere with your customers. You know, we buy all kinds of stuff from China. They love us. We're their best clients, right? You know, we buy their stuff. So then it's really not about money in that way. I don't know. I'm looking at the whole picture. Somebody's getting rich over all this, and some people are just very sociopathic, where they don't give a damn about anybody else, and so they're doing it.
Are getting richer.
Authority. So what makes them so evil? I mean, disregard for consciousness is evil. Having no regard for people and just looking down at us like we're a bunch of bottom feeders, they call us, and there's no regard, no empathy, no compassion. That doesn't seem like a human quality or feature. It seems inhumane.
On the Kardashev scale, mankind right this moment is at a level 0.
Right.
But
there are individuals that are not. I mean, it's more than just about energy. It's about regard for your fellow beings. So there are many people like yourself and myself and a lot of people that listen here on this show and a lot of people I know personally that really do give a damn about their fellow man. They do care. So how can we reach critical mass with that type of attitude to create this shift? What do we do individually and collectively to create this shift?
Collectively, it's called education. We have to teach people in the schools. All this, you know, in the Islamic world, young boys and girls are taught to hate the West and Christianity at a very early age. And the rest of the world needs to, at a very early age with young people, we need to teach them about the environment, about the planet, about endangered species, about being kind to one another, and caring about one another. In the United States, we have a record amount of homeless people. We have a record amount of people that go without health care. And the next problem after that is crime. And then when you look at crime, then we have trafficking with people, and then we have drugs. Those things have to end. Those things have to be brought to an end. One thing that really struck me about the Anunnaki homeworld is everybody gets health care. It's just universal. You get it. The only other country I could even come close with on this planet is probably socialized medicine that you get in the UK. You just get it.
Mm-hmm.
But here in the United States, the healthcare industry, because the pharmaceutical industry is a profit center.
Right.
You know, it's all about profit. And that has to end. It's just so many things. We have about 5 people that run healthcare in the United States of America. And they're the CEOs of all these healthcare providers. And the 5 of them take down millions of dollars every year in salary. Do they really need it? Do they really need it?
I mean, nobody needs that much money. Nobody needs that much money.
You know,
bottom line is, there's more than enough money to go around. Everybody, you know, we could satisfy the basic needs for the entire planet without anybody suffering. There's just, it's greed. It's hoarding. People who hoard money, that's a mental illness. These people are mentally ill. They're hoarding money.
As we enter the holiday season here, Marcia, my wife, sits down and starts writing checks to charities and to environmental groups. And we give all the time. and will continue to give. As my books sell, I will donate more. But it's what we do. But does everybody do it? No. And then we have people like Bill Gates, who gave so much money to charities, he didn't even know that some of the charities he was giving money to were basically fronts for ISIS.
Oh
no.
Yeah.
Horrible.
And he's not the only one, but some of that went on. And I'm just appalled. And then the other thing is that Marcia and I both get very upset with is when we hear we've given to a charity and we find out that the CEO of the charity gets $1 million a year in salary.
Yeah.
When does it trickle down to the people that really need it? Here in the area where we live, there's a food pantry, and every year we give to the food pantry, and we get our friends to give to the food pantry. It's just something that we do, and I think that more people should. But perhaps we wouldn't have had this problem with homeless and joblessness.
Oh, we're at the top of the hour. We're going to take a commercial break. We'll be back in about 5 minutes.
See you in 5.
Okay.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
You need some more speed records in this day and age. You need coverage.
Coverage? Oh, you mean them little root weevils that crawl around popping off cameras in your face?
Those root weevils write history.
Many of you know that quote by Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men, "You can't handle the truth." Well, you can, and Event Horizons will give you those truths. So when you're mad as hell and not going to take it anymore from that memorable CNN network, you'll know just what to do. We will draw you in and become your news addiction at Event Horizons. Join us Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time at freedomslips.com. At Revolution Radio. Our world team members are Dennis Fetcho, John Ilias, David Dunger, Hyla Cass, MD, Melanie Vrichton, Jim Mars, Paula Harris, John Trello, Maria Payan, Christopher Husser, DODDS, Jonathan Orchard, and me, your anchor, Dr. Robin Falco.
If you decide not to volunteer, it will not be held against you in any way.
Sounds dangerous.
It is. Very dangerous.
Count me in.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps. Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
In breaking news, a visiting Syrian diplomat reported today that their population is evolving rapidly and advancing into a 5th dimensional consciousness. They are seeking peace with all cosmic cultures, which may mean that the Earth will be asked to join the prestigious Galactic Federation of Light Alliances. Please join Debbie West and Michael Hathaway on Lost Knowledge, Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Studio A, for the latest breaking news on the Star Visitors' peaceful contact and the ongoing project of cleansing the Earth.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right. You tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio!
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Aloha and welcome back to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And I am your host, Janet Lesson, with Dr. Sasha Alex Lesson, producer Thomas Becker, and we have today our special guest, John Titor II, and we're talking about mankind. Will we continue to survive? But before we get back to our show, I'd like to remind everybody to please go over to that donation button on freedomslips.com and make your donation. Donate whatever you can today, 5, 10, 15, 20, 100. Whatever you can afford, we would greatly appreciate. Mad Painter, where are we in our process?
We're roughly $500 shy right now, so please donate.
Okay. The end of the month is rapidly approaching. It would be great if we could end up with more and come in at the final month of the year with more than we need. Alrighty. So, Dr. Lesson, are you back with us?
I sure am, yeah, and I'm looking forward to having John tell us some more about rock. The people from Zeta Reticula have continually been the friends of this planet, and Len Kasdan actually credits them with helping us defeat the Nazis after they had defeated Admiral Byrd back in 1947, snuck the Pine Island and killed 64 Marines and so forth. And basically, the story that the Zeta said is that they were looking at our research at Los Alamos, and they deliberately gave us some chips and technology. They arranged an exchange of 12 Americans to Serpo and gave us an ambassador. And if I'm not mistaken, that very ambassador may ultimately have been your friend Rock. Or it may have been someone else, but I think it may well have been Rock. And they also gave us this wonderful thing called the Yellow Book, which talked about the story of Jesus from their perspective. And so those are the two questions I'd like to ask you about, John, is about Rock. What's he like? What's your story with him? And what is the Anunnaki and Rock's idea of Jesus? And how does he fit into our drama?
You know, I've had those discussions with Rock. And I will tell you that Rock at various times was military liaison and then an envoy to United States. And that was his status. And that is a status that he has retained and still on an envoy from the Greys. And the Greys are a race that has been coming to this planet for tens of thousands of years, and their likenesses are all over Neolithic sites. And quite recently, Gaia produced some film clips of some bodies of Greys that were exhumed near Nazca, Peru. And I looked at the tapes, and I listened to the scientific data, and the DNA of these beings was retrieved, and basically very close to our DNA. And I also asked Yahweh about DNA, and that I am probably 95% Anunnaki, but there's a 5% that has been changed. And so I am 6'2" and some 200 pounds, but am very much like the Anunnaki in other ways. But what I find that just fascinating. And Gaia, they produced a series of clips, and I encourage everyone to look at them because they depict Greys with 3 toes and 3 fingers. And they also depict at the wrists metal implants. And these metal implants are used by the Greys, not by all of them, by a few, to do levitation. And
now
the Peruvian government. wanted nothing to do with the exhumation of these gray alien skeletons. I was just amazed. And they were offered, skeletons. They were offered the scientific data that was collected. And they were not interested, did not want to hear it. And I find that very intriguing. But kudos to Gaia, because they pulled off the coup of the century, because they actually produced the films and they're around. They have not been scrubbed off the internet. And I've even placed video clips on my own sites about it. And if you watch them, you will be very impressed.
Oh, great.
So
I have a question about the...
Pick your question.
Go ahead, honey.
Well, we want to hear the site so that other people can see the pictures too, John.
You can just log on to GAIA, Gaia. You would have to go to, or you can go to my Facebook page, and you'd have to probably thumb down a couple dozen articles, and it may be there. Or at my page 177th Time Travel Division, I may have the clip there also. So you don't necessarily have to go to Gaia. You can go to my Facebook pages, but they're Gaia clips.
Hey, thank you.
I would say that the gray aliens are similar to us, but they're only, for the most part, I've only ever seen rock. I've never seen really tall grays, and I'm told they exist. And this leads me to believe that a couple people in Hollywood were read into the gray alien information a long time ago. And Steven Spielberg and George Lucas had the inside track with something Close Encounters. That movie nails it.
Yeah.
The only thing that it doesn't show is the hands and the feet. They're three-toed and three fingers. And the toes are long, and so are the fingers. I found that so interesting.
John, how many toes and fingers does rock have?
3 on each hand and 3 toes. And
don't they have some species that have more fingers and toes?
I've asked him about that, and he says there are variants of his species. And the one thing about Zeta Reticulans, you have to understand, their homeworld, their environment was exhausted. And so they migrated across the galaxy. Just as the Anunnaki have. They exhausted many planetary environments and moved on. And that is why one group in Washington, D.C. says, well, when we exhaust this planet, we'll just move on. And I have discussed
what happens to the planets that are exhausted? Do they ever recover? Once humanity's gone, do they eventually recover and become viable again?
It does happen in some instances, but it takes, if you looked at this planet and said mankind was gone, it would take a couple 100,000 years for everything that mankind has done as far as building civilization on the planet to be erased. Everything would fall, decay after a significant amount of time, and the planet could heal itself, yes. But in that time, mankind would not exist.
On that planet. They might go elsewhere, like you've indicated. So you've said in previous shows that there are already colonies, but before we go beyond that, so there are species, there are beings that could come into a planet that's been devastated by, like like humans or Greys, whoever comes in and devastates a planet, and revive it?
I asked that question of Yahweh, and he said, look to Venus. And Venus remains uninhabitable. It's just a very hostile environment, and it was an environmental catastrophe. But it's not.
Have they attempted to revive or terraform Venus into a habitable planet, or is just so many planets that they don't have to bother to do that?
And then now we talk about terraforming. Elon Musk of Tesla fame and fortune. And Elon Musk wants to go to Mars next year and terraform it. And the problem is that there was a thermonuclear war all over Mars. And it's not ready to be terraformed. And he's going to get there.
What does he know?
What's that?
Hasn't he been included in the loop?
I have traded emails with him, and I still get emails from him. And what I've tried to indicate to him is that you're not going to be able to terraform it successfully. Sending people there at the price tag of $100,000 for a one-way trip to Mars, it's not going to get you anything. He'll get richer, but the colony will fail. And he's going to find that there are extraterrestrials, other species, living on Mars.
Right. And aren't there hostile beings and very primitive, like dinosaur-type beings that are big consumers of humans? They're yummy.
There are certainly some exoplanets out there. When I surveyed some exoplanets here, probably in the twilight of my career with the Air Force, I saw planets that were basically at the end of their lifetime with a civilization that had failed and was in ruins. And I saw some very young planets that had the beginnings of life, and some planets that had animal life that you would compare to dinosaurs, yes. And I saw, and I reported on planets that could be inhabited by us, Homo sapiens, and I thought that could lend themselves well to cultivation and to colonies for mankind, and that had sufficient natural resources to make them self-sufficient ultimately. And then we have 2 colonies that are self-sufficient off-world.
So did those colonies, did those worlds have different species already living there, like animals, or what did they have? Tell us a little bit about those planets.
You know, some.
Well, first, where were they? Let's start with where are they? How many light years are they, and stuff like that.
I think that I talk about it in my second book. No. It's in the first book, and I give a list of planets. I actually do. It's in the first book, authorized Chronicles of John Titor 2, and the distances aren't that great when you're traveling greater than the speed of light. So they're out there. But we've discovered more, and they need to be explored. I believe they are being explored all the time. We look for new worlds. We do. It's all part of the secret space program. And, you know, the rich 1% doesn't universally know, but will know at the right time that they can pay to get off the planet. And they will.
Have you visited the colonies that you helped establish, or you found the colonies and then you recommend them for recommended for them to be colonized and terraformed and whatever else was done. Have you visited them since?
I have
that action
toured with Marcia 2 of the colonies, and they were very nice, very nice. But they're in the process really of. They don't have subdivisions or malls.
They don't have their mall yet. McDonald's
and they don't have barracks. They have private dwellings. They do have that. They have security fences to keep animals out. Okay? They have police forces. They have a military force. They have spaceports. They have air traffic control going on. But and they have factories and things like that. And they have mining going on. Oh, yes, in a big way. And they're discovering new minerals that lend themselves very well to the creation of spacecraft and propulsion systems. And that is part of the reason that extraterrestrials came to this planet. They were looking for resources on this planet that they didn't have. And they found them. Mm-hmm. And they mined them. One of them, as we know, was gold, but there were other natural resources that they came here after and got them. And remnants of these old mines are all over the world.
They got copper from Lake Michigan, too.
So it's just fascinating. One of the things that
what do they use? Go ahead.
One of the things that I found fascinating, and I was touring some storage facilities, and I asked, well, I saw people spraying in the storage facilities, and I asked, what are you spraying for? And they said, cockroaches. And I said, wow. How did cockroaches get to this planet? And they said, they weren't here initially, but they're here now.
Yeah.
So, oh my God.
The short and long of cockroaches is that they are a prehistoric insect on this planet alone. And I found that fascinating. And the other day I went to our kitchen in my home with Marcia, and there was this one little cockroach that was scurrying away off a kitchen counter. And so the next day, we had a very rigorous cockroach abatement program. And I had to sit Marcia down and say, do you know how long cockroaches have been around? And millions of years.
Yeah.
It's a very...
They'll be here after humans are gone, that's for sure. What does it take to wipe out a cockroach? The cockroaches. And very likely, when life ceases here, there may be some insects that remain. Quite recently, I watched a video clip from Iceland. And even in 210 degree Fahrenheit water, life exists. So life on some level may exist after 33 years from now, 100 years from now. But the problem is with mankind. We may not be here. The sad fact of the matter is, as things start to collapse for mankind, we have pandemics come back like smallpox, diphtheria, cholera, flus that we don't have any control over. And we've had these kinds of pandemics in the past. Ebola, for one. I mean, when the internal medical structure breaks down, mankind will have a very tough time of it. And that's what I foresaw. When I originally went to the future to 2050, that's what I saw, the end of mankind. And my entire crew went with me. There's more than one future, though, right?
What?
There's more than one future. that's not set in stone. That's just a future. That's not.
I have been trying for the last decade to change that.
And so, how do you know that you changed it or not? Do you keep going back to the future?
I've been back recently.
Okay.
And you have to be very careful. You don't want to, you can observe, but do not touch. And I looked, and things weren't that much better.
But they were better.
Slightly. In some areas.
Better. Okay.
But
so, haven't they been playing with timelines? They, the mystical day, mystery day.
You know, that's another thing.
Stuff.
I know that they will change the timeline at their discretion. I know it. I know they've done it, and I watched them do it. And the goal of time travel was to observe, and at some point they thought they could preserve mankind as a species. That would be the new goal. You know, if you could prevent an all-out thermonuclear war and thereby save mankind, do it. And so they have, and I know they've done it a few times. It's very risky business when you start playing with.
Did you do one of those types of attempts yourself? It was in your first book that the
yes,
I forget what country they were going to attack us using nukes on planes that flew in behind commercial aircraft, and so then you went back and you showed whoever that was, what country, what would happen to them, which. Yeah.
And
are we on that timeline?
We changed the timeline once. I did that. I had a team, and I directed them, and they did it. And
okay.
Then I went back in time once and changed the timeline by killing off an invading force of extraterrestrials that went to the year 230 BC in China, and we're trying to take over China. And
so you've done two major interventions.
Yes.
Are we still on that timeline, or are we on a different timeline?
We're on the last timeline that we're still on is from when I sent the team to Iran. We're on that one, and we've reasoned that one through and talked to scientists, and they say we're pretty sure that's the one we're on, and that because that's the one closest to us. But it's all about. So,
are there other people playing with the timelines? I mean,
I'm sure
Stuart talked about all that timeline manipulation and from the Montauk program, and then there's other time travel or time viewing systems like the chronovisors. And I mean, how do we ever know where we are?
That are most viable are the stationary time machine designed by Michio Kaku at Area 51, and then the other method is to actually have a spacecraft that can travel faster than the speed of light. But I would have to say that, and both of my books now have been reviewed by the CIA. An analyst friend of mine at the CIA reviewed the second book. He says, no, both books are correct. And like no one has ever criticized the technology I talk about in the books, either authorized or continued Chronicles of John Titor 2. The only attacks I ever get is from an ex-business partner. Who for
right.
who for as just a matter of good taste, I'm not going to say his name on this telecast.
Good idea. Good idea. Let's not do that.
We won't go
Yeah, and I would like to really not leave the subject of rock as the ambassador, because he was accompanied by the Yellow Book that told something about Jesus and the possibility that the dedicated human, as they seem to call him, could be returning. And I hear a lot of rumblings like that, and I just wonder, is he an Anunnaki? What do you know about Jesus?
I have not heard anything about that. I have not. I would also say that very likely Rock is reaching the end of his appointment and will either go to the Anunnaki homeworld as an envoy there or go back to his homeworld. I don't know.
Wow.
But I will see Rock
You'll
over
lose
the
your
holidays.
Good. Tell.
And I don't know if I've told you this before, but like Marcia likes Rock to beam down to the backyard. She thinks that if he comes to the front door, that's too much information for other people.
I would agree.
And because like the people that work for me that do security, they wouldn't grasp it, but they've seen him. They've seen him. I've had security personnel come into the house, and he's sitting there on the couch, munching on Doritos and petting my cat. So, and
cat likes
the cat makes him pet her. So what can I say? I don't know. But usually the cat sleeps with me and Marcia, so I'm pretty sure the cat thinks that we're here for her benefit.
I agree.
She has a whole different perspective on reality, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they do. I have a couple questions. Well, Brock is a very important person. I would love it if he would just come over here sometime and say hi to me. Because I have Grays come visit, now and again. And one popped into my living room, but I don't know who they are. They might be friends of Rock's, but it was getting light, so it was dawn, and I was wide awake, and I was just having, of course, telepathic communication with him. But okay, my questions are: I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but they were called the Dropas or something, in China or Tibet. Yeah. Yes. Errol the Great, who was the one that was interviewed at Roswell, she was in her avatar like a doll baby, and she didn't die. She just left the doll baby, went back to her other form, just like in the movie Avatar.
Doll body.
But her body. She called it the doll baby. The body was like a doll. It was very small and fragile. But anyway, what she says is the Dropas in China or Tibet, wherever that is, are the Greys, and they got trapped in the cycle of reincarnation. Like there's a prison type system that keeps people and beings and souls locked in this cycle of reincarnation. Is that something that you're aware of, or have you ever talked to Rock about?
I'm very familiar with the Dropa story, and the Dropa story was suppressed by the Chinese government. And there was these stones that were discovered, the Dropa stones, in a cave. And a Chinese scientist examined them and examined other artifacts in the cave and talked to native peoples in the area. And the Dropas basically were an extraterrestrial species, and they looked to be gray-like, and they crash-landed in China. And they tried to assimilate with local indigenous peoples, and the people there turned on them and killed them.
Right.
And so another illustration why if you're a great alien and you're smaller than the indigenous people, better stay out of their path and out of their sight. And so that's one of the things that kind of just follows through today. At the spaceport at Creech Air Force Base, the tall whites, very intelligent, tall beings, very similar to us, light-skinned, blonde-haired, sometimes reddish blonde hair, 6 to 7 feet tall. They call them the tall whites. Pale skin. Sometimes seen gambling in casinos in Vegas. But they're supposed to be at Creech Air Force Base, which would been there for a very long time. It used to be a gunnery range. And then in the 1950s, a spaceport was created for them there. But for the most part, they stay out of the limelight and, they stay away from us. But I have seen them in the casinos myself. And these are a younger male types, occasionally a female type in their company. And they're not supposed to be there. But with any juveniles, they're more likely to do what they're told not to do.
Do they stand out or do they blend? Teenagers, juveniles. Do they stand out or do they blend with
They stand out. They're albino to some degree.
They're albino. Okay, but they're
telepathic. And I've spoken with them telepathically and said, you're not supposed to be here. And that really shook him up because I could do that. But,
and I've seen, we were in Vegas, we go about once a year because we go to different conferences, and I've seen the little grays walking around too. And they try to blend in as human, but they don't quite, I can see them. I've seen them, and whenever you're going past somebody that uses telepathic communication, my third eye buzzes. My crown, third eye crown area buzzes. I get this vibration. Is that what it feels like to you when you're talking or communicating or picking up telepathic? I get a buzz sometimes.
I usually hear them conversing when I'm in close proximity. One of my favorite games to do is I will go to the mall with Marcia and just sit down and then listen to people's thoughts as they walk by. It's very entertaining. And I love to do it, and as long as they don't know I'm doing it, it's very entertaining. You see a group of girls chatting, and what they talk about, it's very enlightening. I would have to say that I've always been a little afraid of the female of the species, and everything that I've learned in life for the last 70 years has gone to confirm that they are the more deadly of the species. I just want to tell you that.
Yes, be afraid, be very afraid. Other question.
I try to be careful about it.
Yes. My other question, being female, no. The time technology that they used in the Philadelphia experiment, is that the same type of time travel technology that our government is currently using?
Very close to it. That was, the Philadelphia experiment was a collaboration of Einstein and Tesla. And they succeeded in a very limited way. But their experiment really failed when you had people that got trapped inside bulkheads.
Right. Now, are they still operating in Montauk? I've had people investigate up there. They apparently moved the Philadelphia experiment to Montauk, and then you have all the books.
As far as I know, that has been closed. There has been
that's the official.
And that site's been closed for many years.
And then
there's one of the interesting things is, there's an Area 51. Did you know there's an Area 52?
Yeah. What's the difference between 51 and 52?
52 is located in a different geographic place.
Okay. Do they have the same
Not
function,
near
or do they
51.
have different purposes? And not near 51.
No, but as a site where they
Where-
assemble very, very large spacecraft.
Okay. And where is that? What state or what world, part of the world?
I would say that the easiest way to find extraterrestrial sites, if you just look at the United States demographically and look for the least populated areas in the northern part of the United States and below the Canadian border, that is probably near the Rocky Mountains, you'll nail it. You'll nail it.
And you can't see anything when you fly over.
Just as with Area 51, a lot of Area 51 is below ground.
Right.
So, same situation. But they took greater care in creating an Area 52.
So those people can't go to Vegas. Go ahead, honey.
I would be admonished by handlers if I gave away Area 52.
Okay,
but if there was a place, that they were going to use as a staging area to take people off-world to colonies, that would be it. That's the stage.
Okay. Go ahead, Sasha. Your turn.
John, before we finish, this is a different station than we were on before, and so I would really like you to talk a little bit about your experience of finding yourself an adult person with memories that were fed to you, that you realized were fed to you, and how you came to understand how you were cloned, how Marsha was cloned, and how the cloning program worked and is working.
They basically gift you with memories, and they do it very well, but there are gaps in the memory, and that's the first thing that you detect, memory gaps. Okay, this is my history up till the time I graduated high school, but how did I get here? Here I am at Dulce Base, and I'm in a secret program, and I'm being tested mentally all the time. So they gift you with memories, and then there are gaps in your memory, and you have some trepidation if you're eliminated from the program, what happens to you? And basically, I've since learned that clones that don't make the cut, that can't be released into society or to a functioning military unit, are deactivated.
Wow.
You mean killed?
That's not what they call
it.
Does
that mean they're killed?
It's called deactivation. So that's what happens. You weren't fully cooked.
Yeah. What does that mean?
You lay down on a table and never wake up.
Oh.
And they don't tell you that's what's going to happen to you.
It's like never being born.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then if you have usable organs that they can transplant, they remove those. Nothing is wasted. And originally, clones were a source of organs for VIPs within the federal government.
So when that happens to you and you hear that's happening, did you feel like most human beings would feel fear? Did you feel scared about that?
To some degree. I don't worry about it anymore.
So since you're like still alive and you're retired, they must have rewarded you for your service or something. They must value you.
They do. I still get telephone calls to go to Palmdale International Airport and get on Janice Airlines and go to Area 51. I'll probably go there next week sometime. It just happens. I would tell you that, I keep a loaded 45 automatic on the nightstand. And I'm a very cautious person, and when I go get on Janice Airlines, I usually have a 45 automatic with me. They never ask me about it.
Okay.
Just take it along. Everybody gets to carry one bag, and it's in the bag. But
it's in the bag.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to deactivate me. I don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Do they pay you for all these years you've been working for them? You get your pay.
I get a stipend around the first of every month. That's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. It won't buy me a Lamborghini, but it's pretty nice.
Oh, cool! I'm glad to hear that.
I will tell you that Marcia and I are very well invested, and we sat down with accountants and attorneys not too long ago when we looked at what our net worth was, and it was substantial. It's substantial.
Okay.
I'm really glad that, yeah.
We will never want for anything except, I did see a house in Portofino, Italy, that I really liked up on the hill overlooking the little bay there. And I wanted it. Marcia wanted me to pay cash, and I didn't have the $2 million handy. That was a cheap price. So yeah.
Well, I wish I could say the same, but we're pretty silly. We didn't invest properly, so we're just living day to day, just like the rest of the world. But that's good to hear.
The traps that Marcia and I fall into, we look at commercials on TV about new cars, and we have paid for cars, and they're very nice, and we just own them outright. And it's just like the house we live in is paid for outright. And so, if Marcia wanted something, we'd just go pay cash for it. If you can imagine going to the dealership and you telling them you're just going to pay cash for the car because you want it, and they say, "You're sure you don't want to finance it?" It's a different world for us.
Different world. I can only imagine.
Yeah, you pay twice as much.
We pay our taxes, though. We do pay taxes. I will tell you that our next vacations are we go to Tahiti, and then we go to Peru. I want to go visit Nazca and the caves where they exhume the great aliens, and we'll do that. And then there's some Neolithic sites there that I want to visit and meet with Brian Forster. I want to go on one of his tours. So there's a lot to see and do. But the main thing is the civilization on this planet was more technically advanced at one point. And then we basically had a thermonuclear war all over this planet and Mars and various parts of Venus. And we bombed ourselves back to the Stone Age.
Right.
And so could we do it again? Yeah, possibly. There are some archaeologists that I have talked to recently, and they say that civilization has started over not less than 14 times on planet Earth.
Wow, that's interesting.
Now, how many times did those civilizations have the power to extinguish themselves with thermonuclear war? At least 2 times that I know of.
Yeah.
So there's when you look at the history of mankind, you really need to, besides looking at Neolithic sites, then you need to look at the giant cover-up, literally the giant. There are giants all over the planet. And they were Anunnaki. And one of my favorite sites to visit is Lovelock Cave in Nevada. And you can go to the museum nearby, and they have bones of giants. And these were red-haired, blonde-haired giants with multiple rows of teeth.
Wow.
And so those kinds of giants found all over the planet.
Yeah.
And they're Anunnaki. So all I can tell you is...
The Smithsonian dumped about a bunch of the skeletons. They destroyed them because it didn't go with the official policy. They actually destroyed many giant skeletons.
The Smithsonian received lots of specimens of giants from all over this country, and they don't have them on display, and they don't seem to know what happened to them. It's like McKenzie Cave that they found in the Grand Canyon. They basically dispute that they ever received artifacts from the McKenzie expedition into the Grand Canyon, at which they found Egyptian and Asian artifacts in this cave in the Grand Canyon. Now, why would that be?
Right.
And what you have to understand is that there was a civilization that lived in the Grand Canyon, and that there are many walls within the Grand Canyon that are absolutely flat and straight up and down. Now, that does not occur in nature. But there was...
So what do you know about their culture? Do you have any information? What they were like?
I'm still unraveling that, and I'm emailing back and forth and gathering information, and some of my information comes directly from the source, Anunnaki. And what I'm told is that there was a civilization in the Grand Canyon, and that water wouldn't have created all of that, and that there was a civilization living along the shores of the Colorado River. Oh, yes. Was it bombed out of existence? Oh, yeah. And were there ant people in the Grand Canyon? Yes. And the ant people are another species that we don't talk about too often, but the Hopi Indians do. And there remains a time portal in the Grand Canyon on Hopi land. And you can go from one, I would guess, world to another world. And the other world is more advanced. But there is a portal there.
What about the inner Earth or the right underneath the Earth? Are there other cultures there?
Hollow Earth?
Yeah. Hollow Earth and right underneath the Earth, like Antarctica.
I'm not a real proponent of Hollow Earth, because the Earth is a living, breathing planet. And our core of this planet is molten rock that is mostly of iron ore. So that is the core of this planet. Now, the crust of the Earth goes quite a ways, but wherever you go down in depth, it gets hot. If you hike from the top of the Grand Canyon to the bottom, it's substantially hotter at the bottom. It's all about the Earth's crust and what's down at the center of the Earth. So would that sustain life? I'm thinking that it's not impossible, but not life as we know it. But I have yet to investigate ant people and this portal to another civilization that exists on Hopi land. That in Chaco Canyon are other things that I plan to investigate. In before I depart this world.
Great. Now, we only have a few minutes left. Let's start summarizing what we want to cover. But I only have like 2 minutes. We'll have to do some other shows, John. Of course we will. What would you like our listeners to know? I think we only have about 2 or 3 minutes.
I got your other email, and I will firm up a schedule with you about other shows. I'm very interested in doing more shows with you. And I would like to discuss my next book, Answers in Stone, because I think that people don't understand. They see Neolithic construction like at Baalbek, and they see stones that weigh hundreds of tons that we can't lift today with modern machinery, and they don't understand. Those stones were lifted into place by a technologically advanced civilization. And so that would be the bulk of my next book. I'm going to say we're the result of what happens to a civilization when it bombs itself back to the Stone Age. We're living it. We are. We were technically advanced at one time, and because we didn't understand what we had, and probably suffered with some people that were greedy beyond what they needed to be for whatever, they created an environment where total nuclear war brought us back to the Stone Age, and we're what came after.
And that's the end of the show. Thank you so much. John,
thank you,
Sasha, Matt, Tator, listeners. Aloha, lovers.
Okay.
Aloha.
Aloha, and I will be talking to you. Bye.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at buyer risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Most guys freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
The body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling it to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. But do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting to danger. Unafraid.
Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution Radio.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed. People working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. This country was founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to the banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Who? Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said.
Want entertainment designed just for you? Then check out customizable streaming TV from Xfinity. It makes your life simple, easy, awesome.
Xfinity gives you customizable streaming TV options. Enjoy the most free shows anywhere on any device, and even access your streaming apps right on your TV with X1. Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today to learn more. Restrictions apply.